Hey guys, Trife here, back at it again with another video. If you don't know, recently a balance patch just came out which introduced new mechanics such as outboxing buffs, including a whiff counter window for outboxers, as well as disjointed hitboxes for the M1s and the M2s. It also introduced a PD damage cap and style specific balance changes. This is what we're going to go through for today's tier list. This is sort of an emergency tier list to address the inaccuracies I made regarding Joyobuki in my last tier list approximately a week ago, along with the fact that this patch just came out, and since the game's meta has shifted completely, I might as well make a corrective tier list as soon as I can. And yeah, let's get straight into the video. But before that, I'll give a massive shout out to the 6 members of the Trife channel: Cool Guy Flunker, R-Laws, Juice Muffin, Valerie, Audrix, and Mercenary. Before we begin, I should note that I am starting with the B+ tier because there aren't really any styles in this game that are mediocre. Most of them are either decent or really good, overpowered, etc. On that note, in the B+ tier, we have, in order, Shotgun, Freedom, Turtle, and Counter. Right off the bat, Shotgun's disjointed hitbox, its outboxing buff, doesn't really serve it pretty much at all because the core issues with this style are its weakness to counters and its damage in a feint-based meta. I've always said this since the beginning of Shotgun's release, and that hasn't changed. Its damage hasn't been addressed. It can reliably outspace other styles that have around the same range, but since Shotgun's range wasn't that good to begin with, the disjointed hitbox doesn't help as much as it should compared to other outboxes. In the case of Freedom, nothing has changed. It's still a glass cannon without the cannon. It still takes a lot of damage, and its reward is kind of mediocre. Yes, it has a lot of techs, but 9% of its techs are bannable and considered bugs, so tough luck. When it comes to Turtle, it got pretty much gutted. Yeah, obviously the block HP buff does kind of help, but that wasn't an issue with this style primarily. It was the block regen, and with the block regen getting completely gutted, and the chain M1 damage also being nerfed, and the block damage, and the anti-heal, and the startup M1 damage, and the block damage, and the M2 block damage, just all being completely destroyed, this style is just virtually useless, at least compared to other styles in this game. It went from being basic, but with better block and slightly worse dashes, to just being a punching bag, which I guess is the intent of the Turtle style, but I still think this was a massive overnerf. But at the same time though, Turtle is generally boring to fight, so some would say this is completely deserved and a long time coming. Next up we have Counter, with its M1 stamina consumption being decreased, and its overall M1 block damage, and anti-heal being nerfed. This nerf was completely undeserved. I don't know why this part of the balance patch is a thing. Counter was already barely A tier before this update. Nerfing it even further just makes it kind of mediocre for the sake of being mediocre. Considering this is relating to Miyata, one of the main characters of Hajime no Ippo, I feel like doing Counter this dirty is insane to me, and I'm just gonna say good luck to all the counter mains out there. You guys aren't eating this update, let's just say that. Moving on to the A tier, we have Bullet, Basic, Smash, Kimura, Charge, and Chronos. When it comes to Bullet, nothing has really changed with it. The M1 chain block damage increase, along with the nerf to its base damage, kind of just flips it when it comes to the script for Bullet. It has better block damage pressure, which can set up more damage overall, but its base damage, so its reward for landing M1s in the first place, is decreased, which means it hasn't really changed from its placement. With Basic, however, its damage got completely gutted. I was debating actually putting it in B+ tier, but I don't think its damage is that bad to the point that it doesn't have much going for it. Still has good dashes, still has a good block. Its damage is average now, but that's fine. And in general, this style is still pretty solid. On the other hand, with Smash, it's kind of just basic, but better damage overall. Its M2 is better, except for the fact that its N lag is really massive, which means that it can get reliably punished by an M1 and sometimes an M2 without PDing. However, its PD damage also got nerfed by the PD damage cap mechanic, which means that its PD punish game is not as good as it was before, which is pretty big, substantial nerf. Hence why I'm putting it in the same tier as it was before, but a couple placements down. Next up with Kimura, the M1 stamina consumption got slightly increased, the M1 block damage got slightly buffed, its slowdown stack per M1 got nerfed, and its slowdown stack got buffed per M2, which means that in general, it does more damage per M1 string, as well as block damage. Its slowdown stack per M1 got nerfed, however, but its M2 slowdown stack got buffed, meaning meaning that it's more reliant on M2s to generate slowness. As I've already said time and time again, the fatigue mechanic with Kimura is just a test of patience. As long as you realize you can still M1, M2, and dodge pretty much the same way you could before, but a bit more slowly and not as freely, you'll realize you're pretty much playing the same game, but slightly slower against Kimura. And that's assuming they build it up in the first place. They have to work a lot for that slowness to build up and be maintained for an extended period of time. If they're not absolutely demolishing you right off the bat, they can't build up that stack of slowness, and therefore they have to rely on their own stats. Thing is though, Kimura's stats are pretty good now. It has a decent stat spread, and there might be a change in its tier placement if it turns out the stat spread is a lot stronger than previously thought. But as it stands, I do think it's in A tier, a solid A tier pick. Not much has changed. It can slightly do damage better, but it can't build up slowness as quickly as it could before due to its M1s, its most reliable way to generate slowness being nerfed in terms of their stack rate. As for charge, its stampede ability got gutted for some reason, even though it was useless before. It already got nerfed in the last patch. Why is it getting gutted twice in a row? It wasn't that broken. In fact, before it got nerfed altogether, yeah, it was pretty strong, but it wasn't inherently overpowered. There was still something I didn't get to this day. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the counter resistance on its M1s and its M2s, and that got removed. As for its knockback changes, I don't know why they're here. Yeah, they can eliminate backdash as an option a bit more easily, but it's not as reliably as one would think, and even then they can just side dash then backdash. And honestly, if you're backdashing that much to the point that cornering you in any sort of match is a big issue, then you're probably not that good in the game in the first place. Backdashing isn't as prominent as one would think, and more often than not, you're only really backdashing when you have the space to backdash. There's pretty much never a situation where you get cornered and need to backdash. That's not a thing. The name of the game is PDing, counters, and range. Until they actually add corner-based mechanics, cornering people in this game won't matter that much. Finally, we have Kronos in the A tier. I pray for you guys. You guys, got done dirty. Still not as bad as one would think. Your iframes in Focus got slightly increased. You have buffed anti-heal in Kronos, which is kind of crazy. And its damage is still pretty good, but overall, it's pretty apparent how bad the nerf was to your damage in Focus, which is pretty much the whole entire purpose of the style, to stay in Focus as long as you can, otherwise you're pretty much useless. So that's pretty fun. Next up, we have the A+ tier. We have Corkscrew, Hammer, Ghost, Iron Fist, and Hawk. Yeah, so for Corkscrew mains, I will personally line for every single one of you in game, because this was bad. This was a very bad update for you guys. HP regen got completely gutted, heavily nerfed. They specified it, emphasized it, and thank God that was a long time coming, because I don't know why you guys had the HP regen that was this insane for free with no effort whatsoever. I would have been fine if this was turned into an ability you'd have access to that you could pop when you got altered, for example, but just having it outright was statistically broken. Block regen got slightly buffed. Pretty good. Your block is pretty bad still though, so I don't know how this would work. Chain M1 block damage got nerfed. Good. Chain M1 anti-heal got buffed. M2 stamina consumption slightly decreased. Block damage slightly buffed. Damage nerfed. Deserved. All across the board. Eat it. Eat it, Corkscrew mains. Moving on, we have Hammer. Not much to say. Pretty strong, but unreliable. Has an argument for S tier. This hasn't changed since the last tier list. I think I put an A+ tier last time. Yeah, I did. Same with Ghost. Yes, you can punish off a block when you block the Ghost jab, but it's pretty much luck to predict it in the first place. Unless your opponent's very obvious, in which case, cool, you get M1 punishes. With Ghost bad block, this is pretty good punish. You still get a lot of damage, but again, a good Ghost player will pretty much never get their Ghost jab blocked. Very hard to play around that. And if you play around the Ghost jab too much, and I speak from experience, you actually start losing interactions more often because you're still preoccupied with the possibility that they'll Ghost jab at any point. It's just something that you have to fight against through instinct and just fluttering your block. Block fluttering is very strong against Ghost mains. It's always been a thing, but it's never been reliable, and it's very easy to play around for any Ghost player. And that's pretty much it. Next up, we have Iron Fist, and oh my god, I know this seems pretty insignificant, but the the increased window to dual exchange for both M1s and M2s for Iron Fist is kind of insane. The counter resistance that makes it so you take less damage than you would normally is pretty insane by itself, and I can't understate that enough. Having the ability to dual exchange more reliably than the rest of the cast, except Joe Yabaki, because it has a similar dual exchange range window makes it so spamming attacks with Iron Fist is so strong, and just going for dual exchange consistently is actually pretty reliable, which is kind of unheard of before Joe Yabuki got added to the game. Next up we have Hawk, and of course it did get nerfed overall, definitely deserved. Those nerfs included it only gains meter on startup attacks and M2s, which is a pretty massive nerf when you really think about it. It also gains more encounters, but I think that was already a thing beforehand. Anti-heal no longer scales, massive nerf as well, pretty insane. And meter decay gets faster the more meter you have, which it was the case like that before, but they've made it, they've cranked it up to 11 essentially. They've made it decrease even faster compared to before. No complaints here, this was a long time coming. Next up we have the S tier, starting with Trickster. Nothing has changed with the style, still does insane damage, has insane double dashing capabilities, and yes, its M1's pretty slow, but it's not slow enough so that feints can't account for it. Its range is pretty bad, its backdash is kind of mediocre, but depending on the style matchup, its backdash traveling no distance might actually be a buff or an advantage for the style, since it can punish off backdashes more easily. For example, if your opponent M2 feints, you can backdash and cover both options, allowing for an easy M1 punish, or in some cases, an easy M2 punish. Juki of mine, however, still has pretty poor block, which means it is prone to taking a lot of M1 damage when you do get hit. Next up, we have a bit of a surprise, but honestly, it isn't really unexpected considering all the buffs it got in the latest balance patch, Long Guard. Let's start. Startup M1 damage, startup M1 stamina consumption got heavily decreased, and its anti-heal got slightly buffed. When you consider the fact that its anti-heal already got buffed last update, this is pretty crazy. Its chain M1 anti-heal also got slightly buffed, and along with that, it got all the outboxing buffs, which includes the disjoint hitboxes, which considering the insane range Long Guard has, only being second to Hitman, this is pretty crazy. Its M2 range is also one of the best in the game. I think the best range in the game, on par with Hitman as well. Along with that, it also has the extra whiff counter window, which essentially means if your opponent whiffs a punch, you can actually punch during that whiff window and get a counter. When you consider the range Long Guard has on its M1s and its M2s, along with the disjointed hitbox, this combination of buffs has brought the style from being like B tier, maybe A tier, to an S tier style. In fact, there's a solid argument for it being S plus tier as time goes on. I don't know personally how strong the outboxing buffs are. On paper and through testing throughout the day, and this is like hours of testing, I put a lot of time for this tier list to make sure I got it right. I realize that the outboxing buffs are pretty substantial, but I don't know to what extent. There might be a good chance Long Guard might actually be like a top 3 style by the end of the week. Moving on to Switch here, nothing has changed with it. In a meta where ults are everything and ults make up like half of your damage to win a match, Switch here is still just absolutely broken. Static, genuinely unfair, I still think it needs to be nerfed, but that's just me. Moving on to Ippo, the fact that its stamina regen got buffed with its insane dashes, and its M1 chain knockback got slightly buffed, and its M2 damage and M2 block damage got slightly buffed, and its Dempsey roll knockback got buffed, and its Dempsey roll late tech got re-added all at once when the style was already pretty good in the first place, definitely bumped it to a solid S tier. Nothing else to say, still pretty strong, and you main characters who like using Ippo because it makes you feel like you're the protagonist, you're definitely eating this update. For the last 2 styles in S tier, we have Wolf and Slugger. Everything I could say about Wolf and Slugger I've already said in previous tier lists. Wolf and Slugger are insane mix-up demons with crazy stat spreads, with Wolf's combos being absolutely insane, and Slugger still one of the only styles in this game that has an unreactable M2 with a 3-way mix. Yes, I know the damage got nerfed across the board for Slugger, but its damage is still insane. On its M2, on its M1, and the fact that its M2 is unreactable is still unfair and needs to be gutted. I don't know why its M2 is they just need to rework the style as a whole. I keep saying this. Slugger is the only style in this game that really needs to get reworked as soon as possible, because it is just a bane on this game's meta. I don't care it's not one of the best styles in this game, like right now. It's not top 3. I'll get into that very shortly. But how it's broken, how it's so strong, is fundamentally flawed and just not fun to fight. I hate this style with a passion. I don't care if it's F tier, as long as it has this 3-way mix-up for no reason that's completely unreactable, when every single other style in this game has a reactable M2. I wouldn't want to fight this or let my enemy fight this, no matter how much I hate them. This style is torture. Finally, for the S plus tier, we have Hanslow, Hitman, and White Ash. Now, I know some of these selections are a bit crazy. I'll get into that very shortly, but let's start with Hanslow. Hanslow has pretty much everything. Let me just list the buffs it got, along with the quote-unquote nerfs it might have gotten. but it really depends on what you think is a nerf. Counter multiplier nerfed. Damn, that's pretty bad. Chain M1 stamina consumption, slightly decreased, so it can do more damage in M1 strings. Startup M1 damage and anti-heal buffed, just buffed. Damn, that's pretty great. Wait, M1 damage buffed? Hold on. Counter intake removed. What? Extra counter bonus during blindness added. And then he has the outboxing buffs. Let's look at the outboxing buffs. Disjointed hitboxes on M1s. Now, that's not that bad by itself. Its M1s aren't that large, you know, they don't have much range. Until you realize it has buffed walk speed. It has some of the best walk speed in the game. So its spacing is already crazy. I don't know why this exists, but we're not done. Let's look at the extra whiff counter window. Oh no, you get counters of whiffs, of whiff punishes, with a disjointed hitbox, with the best walk speed in the game. Damn, that's crazy. And guess what? If I recall, this style still has buffed counter damage compared to the rest of the cast, because it's still considered a counter style. So what we have here is a style that's a counter style, an infighter, an outboxer, all at the same fucking time. And guess what? Hitman's still better. Let me start. There's a reason why I put S plus T. Like, I didn't have S plus T since like 3 tier lists ago, because this game was actually balanced to an extent. Not anymore. Hitman was already one of the best styles in this game. Easily top 3, top 2. And then you add a disjointed hitbox on the largest hitbox, hitbox in the game. And then you have the extra whiff counter window on the style with the best spacing in the game. This style is already crazy when it comes to outboxing. In an infight, it has the best stat spread in the game, and you could fight me on that. It has buffed backwards walk speed, so ranging is just a cakewalk with this style. Best range overall, great damage. What did this style lack? Oh, nothing. But let's buff it anyway. Again, I don't know. Oh yeah, by the way, it also has buffed walk speed on top of the walk speed it already had. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking with this. But we're not done, because the best style in this game, and I can't believe I was this wrong about the style even before the buffs, was White Ash. White Ash, before the buffs, was already S tier. Easily. I was completely wrong about how strong Burn was. The Hyper Armor, with its increased HP regen, far outpaces the HP loss. The HP loss isn't even that bad. You also take reduced damage, you have so many buffs with it, and you can also dodge an ult mid and one string, so that makes that combo not true. This style has everything. Like, it is a prime example of risk-reward, but with reward outweighing risk by like a massive margin. And then they thought it was a good idea to what? What was it a good idea to? To make the secret ultimate one shot, and then make the normal ultimate. The reason why this is a problem is because the whole drawback of failing the ultimate is completely offset by the fact that you can just pop burn right after, heal it all back, while also punishing your opponent for trying to take the health that you're trying to regenerate. And since you do way more damage than your opponent, and have way faster speed, and better dashes, and better everything, you just win pretty much every interaction. It is actually optimal to stay in burn as much as possible, despite the fact that you're actively losing health. It is also optimal to always fail your ultimate, despite the fact you take more damage, because you used to do 7% off the 4th ultimate. And since you gain ult so much more quickly compared to the rest of the cast, this was very viable. And then they made the ultimate one shot. Now, if it was already viable, in fact, optimal to already go for the secret ultimate, buffing it to 100%, what would it do? For a style that has some of the best damage, best stats, takes reduced damage, just has everything it could already have for a style as risky as it is. What would happen when you give it a one-shot ultimate they can easily gain access to if playing optimally? You have the best style in the game, and it's probably not even close. I actually, there might be a good argument to make this style SS tier. That is how insane the style is right now. The Hyper Armor is a very big issue. Like, that is a very big part of it, along with the fact that it gains burn off a failed ultimate. But then, even if you don't want to go for the secret ult, maybe if you're in a scenario where secret ult isn't optimal, you also do more damage with the counter ultimate, which you can pop like twice per stock if you play optimally. Of course, the style is very difficult to use. Only good players are going to be able to use this style, which is the reason why I think it's somewhat justified to be this broken. I think even for that though, this is an overbuff. This style is overtuned now. Before it was fine, it was balanced to an extent, but now this is just irredeemable. That's it. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. That summarizes the tier list. If you agree or disagree, have any criticisms, or you like the tier list, make sure to comment down below. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.